And away we go. It is the nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken. Right here on BearcatJournal.com, www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Go to the website. They will deliver right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop. Or head down to Dayton, Kentucky, Wednesday through Sunday, lunch and dinner. Tell them to pump it up and save yourself 15% off of your order. Well, it was a fun stay in Kansas City, but that stay has come to a close. Baylor 68, Cincinnati 56 in the quarterfinals of the Big 12 tournament. By all likelihood, that ends Cincinnati's desire to win their way into the NCAA tournament. The way things work now with the NIT should guarantee Cincinnati a spot. Not that that's really in question, but should guarantee Cincinnati a spot in the NIT. It will mean at least one and potentially a couple more home games at Fifth Third Arena. I am sure we will have that conversation later in the show. Because I don't understand people that don't want to watch their team play sports. I'm not watching my team play sports. Are you sure they're your team?
Are we having that conversation now, or are we having that conversation later?
We'll have that conversation later.
Okay.
If you're on the other side, I might have to fire you on the spot.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see.
I'm not saying I will, but I might. Cincinnati got up. They got up big, not big, but they built a quick lead. They never really found a rhythm offensively. You wonder how much that is just fatigue. They got beat on the boards. You wonder how much Baylor was much more bouncy, I guess is the right word to use. Much more active. Active, I think, is probably the right way to phrase it. When it came to they shot a lot of threes, Baylor did. They missed a lot of threes, and they were very active they were much more active than Cincinnati on long rebounds. That benefited them greatly. And look, they did a phenomenal job in the first half defensively. Baylor shot 25% from the floor, 10% from three. The problem is,
I know what the difference is between
26 to 24.
Well, the difference between the first and the second half is Aziz Bandago getting to play and not having some bullshit calls from these garbage ass refs that continue to get the stage in, I don't know, maybe the biggest stage in collegiate basketball.
I'll let you go.
I'm not bitter or anything. I'm not bitter.
I'll let you go off.
What the fuck are we doing? It was both ways. Cincinnati, there was a Dan Skillings pass that sailed, didn't touch anybody, and Baylor was rightfully pissed where there was no deflection on that. But it's like they didn't know what they were doing. It's like it was their first time refereeing. I don't understand. Still will never understand why referees don't have a union, why there isn't a full-time job for these people who this is what they do. This is your sport. Now that you have money flying everywhere for all of the bettors everywhere, you need to get these fucking calls right. Do your job. And if you can't get it right on the floor, there needs to be somebody in a booth somewhere calling it, hey, we got the replay. You don't have to go review it. We're already doing that in real time. Here's the actual play. It's in your ear. You got it wrong, but here's the right call. That way nobody has all the power. All of this is stupid.
So, off the top of my head, the CMOS double dribble.
It's not called fairly both ways.
The CMOS double dribble, he picks up a loose ball and starts dribbling it, and they call a double dribble. And then Aziz is standing there as one player, Baylor player, crashes into another Baylor player, and they both fall down. Yeah. And they call the second foul on Aziz.
Because they landed on him.
Which impacted, Aziz didn't land on anybody until there was already
he was bent in an L shape.
Yeah. So that takes Aziz out for most of the first half, which played a major factor.
The one play with Jizzle on a fast break where he passes it to John, they both got fouled on that play.
Yeah.
Nope.
Jizzle got fouled twice just trying to navigate through bodies to make the pass to John. And then John gets fouled.
By two different people, Jizzle was fouled.
Yeah. And then the two at the end, Jamil throws a ball off of a Baylor player. The guy right there does the right thing. Says, I didn't see it. He asks for help from the official that is the closest to him. And he says, I didn't see it. Now, at that point, the two guys closest to the play didn't see it. The third guy, who is 50 feet away from the play,
behind the half court,
comes running in and definitively says, Baylor ball. What could he possibly have seen from 50 feet away that the two guys closest to the play? Because here's what's supposed to happen. This is in the rule book. It's in the rule book, Aaron. The officials don't see the play. They call jump ball. Cincinnati had possession. Cincinnati gets the ball back. But instead, the guy that had no chance to see what happens defines the outcome of the play. And then, very shortly after, John Newman deflects a ball into the player's hands from Baylor as he's trying to pass. Clearly, it goes out off the Baylor player. Again, the guy closest to the play that doesn't see it. The second guy, definitively, with all the force you could possibly show from an official, Baylor ball.
I guess what baffles me, and granted, Cincinnati didn't go down low as much as I would have liked. We'll get to Hunter in a second, but they didn't go inside as much as I would have liked. But when you have 14 layups compared to 15 layups, you have 26 points in the paint compared to 26 points in the paint, and you end up with 22 free throws to 9 free throws. And this is like the 6th fucking game in a row where we've had this type of a disparity where there's 10 more free throws being shot by the other team in every goddamn game we're playing. I don't understand how you can literally tell me to my face that we're calling this game the same way for both teams.
It's fair. I mean, we've seen it multiple times over the past month that it's just not being called the same way on both ends of the floor. So I get the frustration. And I'm not
blaming the refs for I'm not blaming the refs for this loss. Baylor was the better team. Cincinnati was gassed. But give me a puncher's chance. You're not giving me a puncher's chance when you're already deciding that Baylor wins by giving them 10 extra free throws.
Matt, why do you think they avoid contact? They can't get a call. Don't you think over the course of 5, 6, 7, 10 games, if you keep driving to the rim and keep getting fouled and you can't get a call, what's the point of taking the contact? You take the contact to get the foul call. If you're not going to get the foul call, there's no benefit to someone hitting you.
Also, I just want to tip my hat to Scott Drew for putting in Caleb Lohner again to be a gnat. He was a gnat.
Yeah, really good game.
Averages 2.1 points per game, averages like no minutes per game. But in the second straight game against Cincinnati, he puts this gnat of a human who looks like a Temu version of Bobby Brannon, who had the most punchable face on that entire team. I hate him with everything that I am. And kudos to Scott Drew for making that move, because that was everything they needed to get out of that 10-1 funk.
This is all we're saying, D. Smith. The calls on UC, like, I generally, outside of the Aziz foul, I didn't have a problem with a lot of the fouls that were with any of the fouls that like jump into my brain that were called on UC.
Agreed. Jameel was the worst about it. Like, he's so egregious about his fouls, coming down over the whole top. Like,
yeah. Anyhow, let's get the Hunter. Wes is building a monster here. It's taking time, but I think next year's the year they make a big run with some actual continuity on the roster. Keep the faith. Love you guys. Hope to make it down for the NIT before deployment. Hunter, thank you for your service. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, I think things are right about in the range of where you expect to be in year 3 of essentially a complete rebuild. Would we like it to have happened faster? Absolutely. Sure.
Well, because you see things like Tang at Kansas State, who happened overnight, but that's a whole different situation.
He also had their star player last year was on the roster when he got there.
And then way to do it.
And then they took a chance that nobody else was really willing to take by adding a guy that was preseason SEC player of the year before a heart condition wiped out his season. And Kansas State said, we got you.
He also
they took it.
He also had the brand of the Big 12 behind him the entire time.
Sure, but I mean, Keontae Johnson, there wasn't a long line for Keontae Johnson because everybody was concerned. Credit to Tang for making that leap. But he took a risk that a lot of people weren't willing to take. Good for him. But this year, I mean, they're right there with Cincinnati, and Cincinnati beat them. That, to me, that says those two programs are about the same spot, aren't they? I also think you could feel better because Cincinnati has potentially 80% of their roster returning next year.
Time will tell.
Yeah. So to the game itself, they did everything humanly possible to keep Baylor's offense in check. And I thought they did, for the most part, they did a great job of it.
Just couldn't capitalize offensively when this team doesn't know how to play with a lead. They have no idea what to do.
At it.
They have no idea what to do with themselves when they play with a lead. They're just like, well, maybe we'll shoot all the threes. All of them. All the
or
threes.
we'll miss all the layups. We'll shoot all the threes, and we don't shoot 3. We'll miss the layups. We'll turn it over a couple times. Maybe foul a 3-point shooter just to, come on back. Come on. We didn't
throw a little spice in there.
We don't get too far away. Like, you're on a walk in the woods. Like, you don't want to leave your buddy behind. You gotta stay within shouting distance at least. That is something I think that comes with continuity that this program just has not had for 5 years now. They have, I mean, how many times have we talked about this? They have turned over more than half of the roster and sometimes more than 2/3 of the roster every offseason for 5 years. That makes things so much more challenging. Look at the teams that are at the top of the sport. You know what they've got? Continuity. There's at least a core every year. Of course, it's the portal era, whatever. There's a core every year of 5, 6 guys that come back and lead your team forward. Cincinnati hasn't had that since Mick was here.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
That's where you hope this program has now. That the part of the climb that you hope they have reached is that there's going to be 6, 7, 8, whatever the number is, guys, and then you add that return, and then you add Tyler Betsy and Tyler McKinley. You get a transfer too, and you're ready to come back next year with continuity that you replaced 4 of your top 5 scorers from last year. John Newman didn't play last year. Dan Skillings and Vic are really the only two guys that were part of the roster a year ago that played. So, you hope going forward, Day, Jizzle, Dan, Seamas, Aziz, Jamil, like all of a sudden now there's continuity, there's an understanding of what's trying to be accomplished, what the coach wants, what the progression and what the Big 12 is like, having gone through it for a season. But boy, it's taken years off our lives this year getting to that point.
I wonder how many years it's taken off Wes Miller's life. My God.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was. You get a funny text.
I won't say who. I'll just say got a text that said new first kicked out of game in final minutes for harassing ref. Whoever that is.
Good on you.
Well done. Well done, sir.
Proud of
oh boy. I don't know. I have a ton of appreciation for Baylor's roster. I think they're really good. I do think
that's because they're really good. They out-rebounded Cincinnati by 12.
Yeah. Out of a zone. They also they hit the offensive glass really hard, like with a lot of emphasis tonight. And we haven't for a little while now. We have not seen somebody send that number of bodies to the offensive glass to kind of take advantage.
If you're Scott Drew and you got 14 offensive rebounds and only 13 second chance points, you're furious.
I don't think so, because I think a lot of it was deflating for Cincinnati at times, where they really ran some good defensive possessions. They force a bad three. It misses, 16 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And Baylor has a guy come in, swoop in, grab it, and now they've got possession again. That, especially for a team playing their third game in 3 days, that is exhausting.
Well, and clearly it was exhausting on the other end of the court, where Cincinnati, with their 7 offensive rebounds, that's one of the lowest numbers I can remember for Cincinnati. Only 2 second chance points. 2. Also the lowest number that I can remember doing these after game shows. So,
Aaron, I mean, honestly, if you would have told me Cincinnati had 2 second chance points coming into this game and they shot 2 data points. Cincinnati shoots 40% from the floor and only gets 2 second chance points, I would have told you Baylor probably wins by 25.
Well, what if I told you that they shot 20% from 3 in that same clip?
I'm not shocked on third game in 3 days. For a team that's not great shooting threes anyway, you get to game 3 in 3 days. It's not easy. It's not easy. At least they didn't start the game 10-0 and then lose by 37 the rest of the way.
No, they were on the other end of that 10-0 score, and we saw what happened.
No, you're missing the joke.
It's fine. I'm still bitter that they don't know how to play with a lead.
Xavier was up 10-0 to start the game on UConn.
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that.
Well, and then the rest of the game was 87-50.
I had no idea. I couldn't. I don't score watch Xavier.
I mean, I have radio tomorrow, so I have to watch.
Fair enough.
It's my job.
You'll have to excuse me for not getting that joke.
Yeah, it's fine.
4 turnovers for Dan, 4 turnovers for Day. Curious how many of those came in the second half. 3 for Dan, 1 for Day. The one by Day was egregious. Chucking it down the court. I don't know where you want to start on the full breakdown of this one, or are we just going to give the 40,000-foot view?
I mean, Dan was Dan. He didn't have it going from three. He did attack the rim, put up 15. Another, kind of step forward for him where he didn't have that 3-point shot going. He's only 2 of 4 from the line. It wasn't like he got to the line a lot. Still able to get to 15. Newman with 12.
Well,
and
one thing about
with 12.
one other thing about Dan, defensively, I felt like tonight he kind of took a step forward. The 4 steals were impressive. He bid on a lot of stuff. He bid on a lot of stuff trying to get steals. But he was super aggressive defensively, and
he was. No, I thought Dan was overall like he had another really good day in this tournament. I thought throughout all 3 games, he was the guy with the most energy, the guy with the most pop, and that's even with Seamas and Day having the game that they had against West Virginia. I still thought Dan was the most active guy, and he has to be because he is not refined. His skill is not so overwhelming that he can coast. He has to be the Energizer Bunny.
I don't think he has any issue with that role.
But he embraced it, I think, immensely this week. He did a really good job trying to provide the team with a spark, with some energy. So yeah. I mean, the 1 of 6, Day is 1 of 4, John is 2 of 4, Seamas is 1 of 6. I thought Seamas was a little. I'll side with you today. I thought he was just firing him up just to try to spark the offense. I don't think they were necessarily the type of shots he has taken of late.
Drives me crazy when he takes one that's 5 to 7 feet behind the arc. Like,
right.
You don't have to be that far back, bro. You're making this shot more than it has to be.
Yeah.
And that's just placement, like body placement. Just, I don't know, position yourself closer to the arc.
I just think he feels like at times, and this is part of what we've talked about for a while and why we've argued about this so much, is that he feels at times like he has to be something he's not. He feels like he has to be, the
Alpha.
guy that gets him, the guy that gets him off of a cold streak, the guy that gets things started, the guy that makes that big shot to get the team on a run, and the run just did not come tonight. Outside of, they scored 12 in the first segment and a half, and then scored 44 the rest of the way. So, yeah. Guys, we'll talk about. Look. Here's the thing: you guys have to remember. We do this every night. We are always here. We will talk about the portal a shit ton very soon. Very soon. It opens Monday. So there's going to be a lot of talk. I'm not in the mood to put odds on guys who just bought their hearts out for 3 games in Kansas City.
It's a celebration of the first winning streak that ended tonight. But it was still the first winning streak.
I think more it's a recognition of, look, this is ultimately a team that was not quite there, but boy, they were damn close. Like, they were damn close. And is that frustrating? Yeah. Like, I think that's more frustrating than if you had gotten blown out in 5 of these Big 12 games. Because everybody looked at it and said, man, we are right there. This is only the second time they've lost by more than 10 in this conference after playing 21 games.
Well, and even that was some of the foul stuff at the end, trying to get claw back. Because it was, I think at what, 8 with just over a minute left.
Yeah. Jeffrey, here's where you're wrong. They might win the NIT. We're still going to be talking about the transfers when the portal opens Monday. That's how this world works. But I just don't think I don't think tonight is that night. It doesn't fit. Natty Ron, will UC get a home game in the NIT? I mean, they're one of the teams right on the bubble. So I would expect at least one and probably two at minimum home games in the NIT if they win, obviously. So yeah, they'll be in the NIT because it's mandatory at this point. Again, to explain that to people, the NCAA has changed the rules on the NIT. The 2 teams from all of the Power 5 conferences, it's 6, I think, actually. The 2 teams with the highest net ranking in those 6 conferences automatically, the 2 teams with the highest net ranking that don't make the NCAA tournament, it's wordy, they are automatically in the NIT. And Cincinnati is going to be one of those 2 teams. So they will automatically have a berth to the NIT. If I had to guess, I would say probably a 2 seed, maybe a 1, but probably a 2. At worst, a 3 with their resume. So that would give them for sure 1 home game, probably 2 home games if they win, potentially 3. Yeah, that's what we're here for. Natty Ron, we're here to help you when things change and stay up with the times. I think this is fair, Andrew. You said before the year they'd have 20 wins and make the quarterfinals of the tournament. You'd 100% take it. Aaron, the reason you would take it is because that would tell you a team that is on the bubble and right there for an NCAA tournament berth.
Well, a lot of things changed between then and now. We didn't know that we would have Aziz and Jamil eligible, and only eligible right before conference play started. We didn't know CJ would be going down for half the season. We didn't know that Vic would go into whatever that was, some type of meltdown, whether that was physical, mental, or a little bit of both. So that's a loaded question. I don't know that I necessarily want to play that game. Plus, we all know that we had raised expectations when we saw them beat BYU, and that changed everything. We thought we had a chance to make some real noise in this conference. And then you started losing close games, and you're like, oh, well, halfway through this conference slate, they're going to turn those close games around. Unfortunately, that only ended up being 4-8.
Right.
And they never really got the home game thing figured out at all. So,
yep.
I would not have taken it because
you would have.
Nah.
You would have. Aaron, this is going to be a 20-win team that battles a 2-seed Baylor in the quarterfinals of the conference tournament.
I would have wanted more.
Okay.
Don't go back and check the tapes because I'm sure I probably said that would have been fine. I wanted to dance.
I moved the goalposts, and I'm not sorry about it.
Look, I just saw some of the quotes from the presser. Wes is still championing his team as a team that should be making the NCAA tournament, calling out Joe Lunardi, Joe Lunardi by name, saying a good thing you're not part of the selection committee. But just, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Right. Back to the game. Dizzle was really good, 5 of 10 from the floor. I didn't like either of his 2 threes, but effective getting to the rim, effective kind of collapsing, that he was the one guy that really had that ability to collapse the defense. I thought Day had 3 or 4 chances to drive and he just didn't.
It was
open path.
Yes,
and he just kind of hesitated.
I had those exact same thoughts actually several different times. Probably not 3. I think maybe twice. But I'm with you.
I can think of at least 3, maybe 4, where the right play would have probably been getting downhill, collapsing that zone, and making something happen. And he hesitated. And by the time he would thought about it, then the zone had recovered and he didn't have that gap.
He also saw ghosts and he had a clear lane and would kick it back out after he was halfway down the lane.
Some of that, that's what you want, because once you get halfway down, the defense does this, then you kick it back out and you can move it. But I would agree he probably didn't get far enough. He stopped too early, as I think what you might be getting at.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't disagree with that. I thought he could have been
kicked it back out, and granted it was an open 3, but when you're shooting 20% on the night, and that's
Day and CMOS were both bad. Probably the difference in terms of putting the biscuit in the basket. They both had a bad night.
They used up all their Michael Jordan's secret stuff in game 1 of this tournament.
Look, that's also, Aaron, why you don't get down 16 to West Virginia, and then your players have to use the secret stuff when they could have kept it in their pocket and used it at a later date.
This team does not know what to do with the lead. They're like, what
does getting down to West Virginia have to do with? They didn't have much of a lead in that one at all, ever.
Well, what did they end up with? They ended up with 6, 7, but they can't ever build on that lead.
Yeah, I mean, they were up, I think, there was a 2-possession lead at one point in the first half, and then West Virginia closed out the half on a run.
Yeah.
I don't know that West Virginia is the right one to point at, but I get what you're saying. Leads have not been their friend. You would hope with a year of maturation that they will learn that lesson, that, hey, playing with the lead is a lot more fun than getting the lead and then giving it up in 3 minutes and fighting for your life the rest of the way. Joe, thank you. Much appreciated. We enjoyed providing it. We're not done yet. This ain't over. They're going to be in the NIT. They're going to play. So we'll still be here. I think that's probably fair, Jared. The first 2 games took guys having a career night to win. The car ran out of gas. They were revving it. They tried to start it a couple times. I mean, they got down 14 and cut it to 7 in a flash, but they just couldn't. They couldn't sustain it. I hate this question, Jack, but what would you guys grade the season? 1, it's not over. What would I grade this season so far? Probably a B-. I don't think it was far off of what we anticipated in terms of this would be a bubble team. I think the narrative changes if you win 1 more game. It definitely changes if you win 2 more of those games that you were in down to the wire and you let get away. If you said C+, I wouldn't bat an eyelash.
That's where I'm at, and for me, it's because of the home games. You got to figure out a way to win at home. And again, when you finish 4-8 in 2-possession games, you got to be closer to 500 than 4-8.
Yeah, I don't have C-. I don't have a.
I'm C+. I'm
not C+. I mean, I don't have a. I don't have a flaw with that. I think anything below that is just being prisoner of the moment and being mad. Right now,
it was,
which is
at the end of the day, it was a fun season, and it's still not over. But
you played in the best basketball conference in the country, and you were swinging in the middle of the ring twice a week. Haymakers. Like, there wasn't a point at all, other than, 10 minutes of the TCU game, that I felt this team was overmatched. And to do that in this league, it says something.
Watching TCU today, if we had watched that game and had to talk about that game,
ooh,
I might have
that wasn't fun.
New phone, who dis?
They were bad. That was rough.
15,
that was rough.
15 first half points. What?
Is NCAA mandatory next year? Well, mandatory, no, because Wes is not losing his job next year. Would I highly recommend it in order to get this fan base all kind of back in the same boat and rowing in the same direction? Yeah, I would highly recommend, because if you miss next year, Wes isn't going to get fired, but there's going to be a segment of the fan base that is never going to buy in. I think most everybody, there are some people that you're never going to get through to, and they wanted him fired the day he was hired, and they're never going to back down from that. So they will want him fired until the day he gets fired or leaves. But ultimately, they have, barring things unforeseen and this roster falling apart, and I don't see that, knowing these guys and knowing the way that this group is, and you can see it by the way they fought. I don't expect a complete roster overhaul. I expect the 2 freshmen to come in. I expect, an addition or 2, or, if something unexpected happens, 3. But for the most part, I see the core of this roster intact. And if the core of this roster intact, the next logical step is make the tournament, right? Because you were right there, either just in or just out, pretty much the majority of the past 2.5 months. Would you say that's fair, Aaron?
I mean,
right there on the cusp. You were never comfortably in. You were never all the way out. So you were in that middle spot that's kind of just annoying to be in.
Doing the hokey pokey.
Right. Next year, the next logical step would be to make the tournament. And to make the tournament, I don't want to use the word comfortably, but to make the tournament without a lot of sweat on Selection Sunday, I think is a good way to put it.
Well, if you're bringing back all but maybe 1 to 3 pieces, and plus the incoming freshman, you lose John, you lose Odie, and if you're not making a step forward, then you've allowed every other team to get better than you in the conference. That's an issue.
Right.
Everyone at that point needs to be looking in the mirror wondering what the hell just happened.
Right. Because there's a lot of teams that are losing all conference guys. Cincinnati is losing an all defensive player in John Newman, and a guy that had an incredible final season of college basketball. John Newman is a guy we will talk about for a long time for what he did this year to help this program acclimate in year 1 of the Big 12. He was a critical
Bearcat through and through.
Right. But the other teams that you're competing with are going to be replacing more. So if your core is back and you continue to move forward at the pace that people expect, you should be able to replace John Newman. And you should be able to put yourself in a position where you're not playing on Tuesday. And guess what? The only team that didn't play on Tuesday that's going to miss is probably Kansas State.
They were on Lenardi's first 4 out as well.
Let me think through that. 4 or 5. Yeah, I think 9 get in. I think that's probably. Hold on. I feel like I'm missing one.
I don't know.
Here we go. Kansas is going to make it. Texas is going to make it. TCU, Oklahoma, BYU. I expect them all to make it. So yeah, there were 10 teams that didn't play on Tuesday. I think 9 of them are going to get in the tournament. So find a way next year to not play on Tuesday and play in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah. Any chance Wes can convince Newman to stay on staff? No, he's going to want to go make money. I mean, you said it. Like, would he come back at some point? Maybe. I think John and Wes have that type of relationship that if John wants to get into coaching, that's another whole. I think everybody just looks at players and assumes, oh, he'll get into coaching. Well,
he said in interviews though he wants to be front office guy in the NBA, not a coach on the floor. So that's a big difference.
So you could see him maybe come in like a kind of a role DeMar had where he wasn't on staff and working towards director of ops, working towards, general manager. Yeah. And then that's when you get into more of the front office type stuff. So John is brilliant. I completely agree. John is a really smart dude. He's really easy to talk to. He's got a great personality. He has big things ahead of him. And this program there's going to be some nights in November next year where we're like, damn, they missed John Newman. Remember how we tried to warn people, like, there are going to be nights the year after Sauce left where somebody completes a pass and you're like, that's bullshit. Oh, yeah. Nobody threw that pass last year because Sauce was there.
In all fairness, I'm not even sure we had average at that point, though. So there's that.
But you want to know how good John Newman is defensively? Jacoby Walter is a lottery pick. Might be a top 5 pick, top 7 pick, whatever, in the NBA draft. He had 11 points tonight. He was 3 of 11 from the floor, 3 of 6 from 3. He hit the dagger that kind of
he did. Put
the nail in it, and that's, I joked around like that's why you go get a lottery pick, because they had 3.5 seconds on the shot clock. They threw it to him on an out of bounds play. He was guarded. There's a guy right there, and he was just like, bang. There's 3. We're up 10.
He also had the 3 when they had taken a lead and they go up 4 at that point, and they never looked back from that. I think that was the first time they got that lead that was over a point, and that was the death knell.
Cincinnati got it. I mean, they fought, man. They got it back to 4
towards the end
with 5:44, with 4:34 left.
Yep.
And that was where Walter made the 3 to put it from 4 to 7. And then from there, Cincinnati was just, the CMOS did hit the 1-3 to cut it to 6, but they were kind of cooked at that point in time. I don't know. I will remember this team as it stands right now as a team that fought their ass off.
Yeah, it was the inaugural season of the Big 12.
Not much from CMOS this time. Yeah, he had a rough night. Jared, what does Fran have against Cincinnati? Nothing. Ooh. Here's what people don't know. Fran was 1 decision away from being the associate head coach at Cincinnati. Have I told that story before?
I don't believe I've heard it.
If Darren Savino
twice.
We don't, you have to act like everybody's watching for the first time, Aaron.
I get it.
If Darren Savino would have gotten the job over John Brannon, Fran Fraschilla would have been his associate head coach. Fran helped mentor Darren when Darren was getting into the business. They're both from the Northeast, like they know each other really well. And that was part of Darren's sales pitch when it came to what his staff would look like, was that Fran Fraschilla was going to be joining him as his right-hand man. And I confirmed it with Fran earlier this year at one of the games he was calling. And I walked up, it was before the game when we're sitting around watching shoot around. And I walked up to his partner and I said, this guy was also almost the associate head coach here? And Fran looked at me like, the hell do you know that?
What you're saying is he's overdoing playing the opposite side, much in the way that Chris Collinsworth does when
I don't think I don't think that at all. What I do think is Fran has been like the lead Big 12 analyst for a long time. So West Virginia, Kansas, Baylor, like he has called a lot more of those games than he's called Cincinnati games. I thought he was very complimentary of Cincinnati.
I got to be honest. I hope we had a lot more Tom Crean next year.
That one was shocking. I was shocked.
I would never have guessed I'd be saying that. But I'm hoping for a lot more Tom Crean.
You want to know another funny thing?
Sure.
Fran,
it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Fran has me blocked on Twitter.
He does hate Cincinnati.
No, so it's probably my fault. Back in my argue with everybody days.
When did those stop?
I haven't done it. I haven't argued. Like I
been like a week.
One guy. It's been like almost a month since I told that one guy that I fucking hated him and not to and to keep my name out of his mouth. I haven't argued since then. Do you want to see my mentions?
No.
What my mentions look like right now? I have not argued with a single person.
I am busy.
But he used to always have this thing with Anthony Davis, and he's done it with other guys that used to drive me nuts. When Anthony Davis made it big, he would be like, I remember Anthony Davis when he was an 8th grader. Anthony Davis was like 5'7", and it was terrible at basketball when he was an 8th grader. His junior year of high school, he grew a foot. He grew 10 inches in an offseason and came back as nobody knew Anthony Davis when he was in 9th grade.
They did, because he had a unibrow as an 8th grader.
But what happens is you have this sheet that you go back and look at and you go, oh, that guy was at this camp I worked 5 years ago when he was a 7th grader. I remember him. I worked at camp.
He looked like Frida Kahlo.
But I was actually at the event where Anthony Davis played his first major tournament. And I know every national guy at this event, and all of them were going, who the fuck is this guy? Nobody knew who he was. Dave Pellip, who's like a front office executive for the San Antonio Spurs, made one of the new guys go over and look at the scorebook, because Anthony Davis's name wasn't on the roster on the book that we had, to go get his name off the roster. And then nobody knew who Anthony Davis was. So I called him out and he blocked me.
It's fitting.
Do you want to do the NIT rant before we get out of here?
Sure. If it means we're getting out of here, then yes.
We've done 50 minutes. I don't know what else.
I'm tired. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm tired too. I have to do radio. I have to do 3 hours of radio tomorrow.
So let's.
I don't understand people that don't want to watch their team. Like, look, if you want to say I didn't want to watch the Cincinnati Bearcats play football again in 2023, I don't hate that. I didn't want to watch that either.
They didn't earn it anyway, so.
Right, but I didn't want to watch that. I was okay being done watching that team play. I like watching this team play. Is it your blood pressure spikes and your pulse goes up and there's a lot of really excited highs and there's a lot of really frustrated lows? But if your team has a chance to play, I don't understand being the fan of a team that says I don't want to watch my team play anymore. If they're bad, I get it. This is not a bad team. I don't understand. Like I refuse. I'm not watching them play any more basketball. I don't get it. That's how my brain works. Other people's brains work differently. I understand that.
I actually agree with you. I don't understand we're too good for the NIT crowd. Granted, it's not the NCAA tournament, but you made a tournament. Play in your tournament and do it with your head held high and finish your season. Somebody's going to be playing in this tournament. Why wouldn't we play in this tournament? You didn't make the other one. Play in this one. Who cares? Finish up your season, be done, but you're playing for something. And maybe you learn a couple things along the way, like how to play with a lead.
I love these guys that just don't watch meaningless games. There's a championship at stake in the NIT. It's meaningless to who? You? Then don't watch. If you don't watch, I'm not going to call you less of a fan. I just personally don't understand if you're a fan of something and you can watch that team play, why you don't. If you don't, whatever. Do whatever the hell you want with your own time. I'm not mad at you.
There's plenty of bowl games that are meaningless.
All of them. All of them, Aaron. They're all meaningless. Outside of the championship, they're all meaningless.
Lest we forget the Pop-Tart trophy. Come on, man. Just saying. Thing was badass.
With X, there's been a couple questions about playing X in the NIT. I don't think they are going to get one of the two guaranteed spots for the Big East, and they're under 500.
Elliot from Arizona, what's up, man?
Elliot says, "I'd rather win the NIT than not win the NIT." Exactly. Put some respect on the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Yeah, see, there's things to be played for here.
I mean,
mayonnaise bath.
I just don't I don't understand. I don't understand the idea of this is my team and they are playing Tuesday night at 7:30 and I'm not going to watch them. Why not? Are they your team or are they not your team? If you've got some stuff going on, my daughter has volleyball practice and I don't know if I'm going to get home in time to watch the game. Okay. That's fine. And I'm not going to make it a priority to go out of my way to have Susie's mommy that's also on the team bring her home so that I can watch the NIT game. I get that. That makes sense. What I don't get is I'm free, I'm available, my team is playing, and I'm not going to watch. Yeah, Natty Ron, we did this last year, the NIT selection show. It's at 9:30, 10 o'clock on Sunday night.
I'm tired of 9:30 tip-offs. What are we doing?
Coming in late, hey, Pete. Who are we blaming for tonight's loss? Have we blamed anybody yet? Do we need to blame?
No, we ran out of gas.
We should have somebody to blame. We should have somebody to blame. We haven't picked anybody to blame yet.
I mean, you really want my answer?
No, I don't. I was being facetious and joking around, and you don't have that bone in your body. I was trying to think of somebody funny to blame.
I was too.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't. Beers were flowing heavy last night, Sam. They were flowing fairly light here because we have to work and I have to talk. But I did have a couple Cincy Lights. I've had a couple tonight as well.
Same.
Who has a bigger jump next year? Jizzle or Skillings?
Jizzle.
Yeah, because I think
all he has to do is figure out defense.
Dan is already at the point where he's made a significant jump from being like a bit player last year to being, the main guy or one of the main guys this year, one of the top 2 or 3 guys on your roster.
He just has some efficiency.
Yeah, but I think the jump for him is much smaller. It's equally as important and maybe as difficult to make, but I think you see Jizzle jump up to a point where he's a 12, 13, 14 per game scorer. Sam, I don't know what you watched the last 3 days. I love Dan. It has been a blast to watch him the last 3 days. He has been the equivalent of an emotional roller coaster. You know what, Aaron? You know what I had somebody say today?
Oh, no. What?
That watching Dan those first 2 nights is like a mushroom trip.
Okay. I was really nervous.
No, like everything's out of focus. Everything's as focused as it's ever been. Everything's out of focus.
I thought they were going to say to you that watching Dan play was equivalent to listening to Aaron on a podcast because it's an emotional roller coaster.
He has not been smooth. He has been good. He has been very good at times. And then he would go from very good to, what are we doing?
You're furthering my point.
Yeah. That's my reaction to you all the time, Aaron. Aaron, that was really good. Aaron, what are you saying right now?
Aware.
Oh, man. The jump for Skillings is going to be, you're exactly right, Jack. Going from good college player to an NBA prospect. That's the
hope and dream.
That's the hardest jump to make. Lots of guys are good college players. Do they make the jump to NBA prospect? Like that is Dan's next jump. But Jizzle has shown he can be a 13, 14, 15-point guy. He just hasn't done it consistently yet. That jump from freshman to sophomore year, if they have Dan and Jizzle on this roster next year, and it's the portal, so I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass and say guys are coming back when I don't have that answer. But I can tell you, with those 2 guys on the roster next year, and Day-Day, and Aziz, and Jamil, and the parts that fit around that core, this has a chance to be a really, really good team next year. It really does. That's the nightcap. We'll see you. I'm taking tomorrow off. Aaron, you want to take tomorrow off?
We're not playing, so please.
I guess we'll take tomorrow off. We'll see you on Saturday to recap the Big 12 tournament and talk about the winner and whatever else might pop up. He's Aaron Smith. I'm Chad Brendel. Thanks to Galactic Fried Chicken. That's the nightcap, brought to you right here by BearcatJournal.com. What?